A deputy was driving through a remote road in Washington when he saw a dog sitting in the middle of nowhere. No houses, no people, no owner. Just an old black and white dog sitting in the road like she had been waiting for him. He tried to get her into the truck. She refused. He searched the area. Nothing. Then he came back and found her lying on the center line again. That is when the dog stood up, looked at him, and headed down an almost invisible road into the woods. If he had left right there, an 84-year-old man might have died alone outside his cabin. Because this was not a lost dog. This dog was trying to lead him somewhere. And the part that makes this story unforgettable is that the dog was 13 years old. Her name was Gita, and she knew exactly what she was doing. To understand why that moment matters so much, you have to go back to the beginning of that morning. It was still dark. Keith Johnson was at his cabin in Stevens County, Washington. He was 84 years old, diabetic, and staying in a place so hidden and wooded that even the driveway was hard to see unless you already knew it was there. Around 5:30 that morning, his glucose monitor started beeping. He got up to go downstairs for orange juice, but before he could get it, Gita wanted to go outside. So instead of grabbing the juice first, Keith opened the door and stepped out with her into the dark. That tiny decision changed everything, because a few steps later, in the pitch black, Keith says he suddenly felt dizzy and disoriented. He fell, hard, and once he was down, he could not get back up. Think about how terrifying that must have been. No one nearby, no easy way to call out, a hidden cabin in a wooded area, the sun not even fully up yet, and pain strong enough that every attempt to move only made things worse. He tried to crawl. He collapsed. He called for help. No one came, and beside him through all of it was Gita. That detail matters, because this story is not about a dog that just happened to show up at the right time. This is about a dog who stayed with him first. Keith later said she came close, lay beside him, and let him hold her while he was stuck there helpless. That image alone is enough to carry a whole video. An elderly man on the ground in the wilderness, morning light slowly coming up, and his old dog refusing to leave his side. But then comes the moment that turns this from emotional into extraordinary. At some point, Keith asked Gita to go get help, and he did not even know if she could understand that. Most people would not believe a dog could take a sentence like that and turn it into action with a plan. But Gita did. She left him there and ran through the woods, not away from him, for him. Hours passed, and then, late that morning, Deputy Colton Wright was driving in the area when he came around a blind corner and saw her. A dog alone in the road. He did what any good deputy would do. He stopped, tried to get her in the vehicle, looked for information on the collar, checked homes within about a mile. Nothing. That could have been the end of it. A strange dog in the road, no owner around. Move on. But something did not feel right to him. That is a huge part of why this story works. Because Gita did not save Keith by herself. She needed one person to pay attention long enough to realize this was not normal. And Deputy Wright did. When he came back, Gita was there again, almost forcing the issue. Still in the road, still refusing to leave, still refusing to get into the truck. Then she got up and took off down an unmarked roadway. Not a clear neighborhood street, not a place anyone would casually drive. A hidden path through the woods. And Wright followed her. That was the moment. That was the choice. Follow the dog or do not. And if he makes the wrong one, this story ends very differently. He later said the driveway was close to a quarter-mile long, and so hidden he never would have seen it on his own. That detail changes everything, because it means this was not luck. This was guidance. Gita was not wandering. She was leading. Wright followed her to the cabin, then found Keith lying outside, calling for help. By that point, Keith had been on the ground for nearly 7 hours. 7 hours, outside, in pain, waiting, hoping someone would hear him. And then finally, through the trees, he saw a deputy walking toward him. Can you imagine that feeling? After hours of thinking maybe nobody is coming, after the shock, after the pain, after the silence, suddenly someone is there. And the reason they found you is your dog. Wright called an ambulance and tried to keep Keith comfortable while they waited, and almost immediately he told him the truth. Your dog is a hero. That line lands because it is not sentimental fluff, it is accurate. Had Gita climbed into the deputy's truck when he first tried to help her, Keith may never have been found. If she had run in circles or panicked or stayed beside Keith forever, he might not have been found. If she had gone to the road and then given up, he might not have been found. But somehow she did exactly what needed to be done. She got attention. She refused the wrong help. Then she guided the right help back. That is what makes this story feel almost impossible. Not just that a dog found help, but that she seemed to understand the difference between being rescued herself and bringing someone to the person who needed rescuing. And when you look at the timeline, it gets even heavier. Keith had not just stumbled in the front yard of a suburban home. He was outside a remote cabin, hidden from the road, in a place where the woods can swallow distance and sound. Deputy Wright later said there were predators in that area, including wolves, bears, and cougars. That adds a whole other layer to the story, because while Keith was lying there defenseless, Gita was not only loyal, she was brave, she stayed. Then she ran into those woods anyway because it was the only chance he had. There is another part of this story that makes it hit harder. Gita was not a highly trained service dog bred for emergency work. She was a rescue dog. Keith and his late wife Janet got her from a shelter when she was a puppy back in 2011. Since Janet died, it had been just Keith and Gita, the two of them together, a man and his dog. That bond matters because it explains why the story feels deeper than just clever animal behavior. This was devotion. This was relationship. This was years of companionship turning into one moment of action when everything was on the line. And there is something else worth noticing. Gita was 13 years old. She was not some young super athlete in the prime of her life. She was an older dog, a senior dog. That makes her hero moment even more powerful, because audiences do not just see a dog being smart, they see an old friend refusing to let her person disappear. They see loyalty with history behind it. They see a bond that had been built over years suddenly tested in the hardest possible way. After the rescue, Keith was taken to a hospital in Colville, where he had surgery for a broken hip. From there, he went to rehab in Spokane to start recovering. And even that part of the story keeps the emotion going. An EMS worker volunteered to care for Gita while Keith healed. Gita visited him during rehab, so even after the rescue, the story still gives you what a viewer wants most. Relief, connection, proof that they made it through. And when Keith talked about Gita afterward, he became emotional. He said he was devoted to her even more now. That line is simple, but it says everything. Because how could you not be? How do you ever look at a dog the same way again after that dog pulls you back from the edge of disappearing? There is a reason stories like this hit so hard. It is not just because we love dogs. It is because stories like this force people to ask a question they do not usually think about until life gets very small and very fragile. Who shows up when you cannot save yourself? For Keith, it was Gita. Not a phone call, not a neighbor, not a lucky passerby. His dog, his old rescue dog from a shelter. The one who sat beside him while the morning passed. The one who ran through the wilderness when he asked for help. The one who refused to get into the truck because she knew that was not enough. The one who turned around and made a deputy follow her. That is why this story sticks, because it feels like intelligence, yes, but it also feels like love. And that is the part people never forget. Not just that Gita was smart enough to act, but that she cared enough to keep going until someone listened. In the end, this entire story hinged on two instincts. A deputy's instinct that something was off, and a dog's instinct that her person needed help right now. Put those two things together, and a man who might have died alone in the woods got another chance. Today, when people call Gita a hero, they are not exaggerating. She was the difference. She was the reason the story did not end in silence. One morning, an 84-year-old man stepped outside his hidden cabin before dawn and collapsed in the dark. Hours later, a deputy found an old dog sitting in the middle of the road. What looked like a random encounter turned out to be a rescue mission already in progress. Because Gita was not lost, she was leading the way.